Dark Web. Story 1. When I was reading an online forum, I came across a post about how to access the dark web. I honestly didn't know what it was at the time, so I followed the instructions and downloaded it on my desktop computer. I never really had much interest in anything like this, and it is because I have heard nothing good comes from it. I was just there messing around because I was curious. And after about an hour my screen was flooded with hundreds of pop-ups and showing that I downloaded a virus. I closed the browser and deleted it from the app to have it not show up again on my computer. And also with all traces of the dark web. Well, that is what I thought. Anyways, later that night, I noticed that the light on my webcam that's built into my desktop computer was on. I had no idea how long the light has been on. I went into my settings and tried to disable it, but that didn't work. Finally, I decided to do a full reset on my computer, which would put it back to the factory settings. After I did that, the light turned off and I thought I'd solve the problem. A couple days later, I got a text message from an unknown number, and it had several pictures of me laying in bed, and the pictures were taken from my desktop computer, which is on my desk right in front of my bed. I was creeped out, but what was even more scary was that I could tell that one of them was taken after I've done the hard reboot on my computer. It was a picture of me after I got out of the shower and then me getting dressed. Somehow these creeps still had access to my camera. I put tape over the camera while I tried to think of what to do. If they had access to the camera, they must have gotten access to my microphone as well. I thought about it for a few hours, then I decided the only option was to get rid of the computer. I took the computer into my garage and took the back cover off of it and started cutting all the wires. Then took a big hammer to it. My computer was completely destroyed. I told my mom and dad that I tripped walking into my room and knocked it over and it hit the ground hard. I don't know how they even believed that. They were like, as long as I was not hurt. I felt a sigh of relief, but not for long. Nothing happened for about a month, but then I got a text message from another unknown number, and now it was a new set of pictures of me. And it was me sitting at my desk in front of my new computer. I have no idea how these hackers managed to get into my new computer, because I never even tried to go on that site. I'm out of ideas and I don't know what else to do. Dark web. It makes me feel so unsafe knowing that someone is watching me anytime they want. Hackers. It started with a van with dark tinted windows started parking across the street late at night and then gone by sunrise. No one ever saw anyone in the van. It just parked and the person or persons just stayed in it. This was going on for over a week. Then a car began slow rolling through our neighborhood. The strange part was the van had something on the roof. Then I noticed the internet was acting up. The speed dropped and I would lose connection. I couldn't load a basic page. I rebooted the router, and it would work fine for a little bit then start acting up again. I called our provider, and they said there were no outages or issues reported. I texted my neighbor and asked him if he was having any issues with the internet, and he said yes. And then he asked me if I noticed the van parking at night on the street. The next day the police showed up at my front door and said I was a victim of a hacker, that if he could come in and ask me a few questions. First thing he asked me was if I noticed a van parking on the street at night. And I was like, yes. He said that this was an ongoing investigation, that he could not get into details, but that if I see the van again to please call so we could send an officer out, and that more patrols would be in the area. He had also told me to reset all my passwords and do a hard reboot on all of my devices. That night nothing happened. 2 nights later, around 11 p.m., I looked out my window and saw the same van across the street. I went outside and stood on my porch and called the police to let them know that the van came back and was parked across from my house. They said they would send an officer right over. I decided to walk over to the van and try and record the tag and maybe get a picture of whoever the driver is. I walked off my porch towards the van with my phone in hand recording. As soon as I got to the edge of my driveway, I saw brake lights come on and it drove off. I got a video, but not a good one. I called back the non-emergency line and let them know that the van drove off. About 3 minutes later, a police officer came down my street and I waved him down. I explained I walked out onto my porch and then walked towards the van to try and get the tag or even a picture of the driver, but he must have noticed me and drove off. The officer told me just to be very careful, that this person could be dangerous and to just call back if I see the van again. The rest of the night and next day was quiet. 3 days go by with no van in sight. Then I get a knock on my door. I was not expecting anyone. I was thinking it might be one of my neighbors. I opened it, and on my front porch was a guy, I would say in his early 20s with a hoodie half zipped up. It's about 92 degrees out. I asked him, "How can I help you?" He looked up and stared past me into my hallway and said, "You changed the password." "Why would you do that, man? You ruined everything." I asked, "Who are you?" He mumbled the first name and then something about live streams. Then it clicked. This was the van guy. I told him to leave or I would call the police. He shook his head and said I was to watch out. I shut the door and locked it. He started talking loud, saying, "You don't get it?" I called the police and told them about what happened. 10 minutes or so went by and a police officer showed up. I explained what happened and I got the typical response. That they will do a report and that if he comes back, call 911, and that they would be right back out. 4 days went by. Then around 6 a.m. I heard sirens. I got up out of bed and went to look out my front window. 2 police cars and a plain sedan were parked right behind the van. I didn't see the van parked before I went to sleep, so I guess he came in the early morning hours. At least this time the police stopped him. I walked out on my porch still half asleep to see the van doors open, and the same kid in handcuffs sitting on the curb. There were 2 plainclothes officers searching his van, and then one of them pulled a small desktop tower from the rear seat. The kid saw me and started yelling. By this time, all the neighbors were coming out of their homes to see what was going on. One of the neighbors asked, "Is that the porch kid?" We all watched the police carry gear to the unmarked car. This went on for close to an hour. They ended up putting the kid in the patrol car and took him away. Then a tow truck came and towed the van. A detective came by that afternoon. He asked if he could come in. I listened while he explained what happened this morning, and then to ask me a few other questions. Then said, "Here's the deal. The man they arrested was from out of state and that he was bouncing between short-term rentals and sleeping in that van when money ran thin. Also that he specialized in breaking into homes. That he would most likely make bail and be released. And that we need to once again change all passwords and reboot all of our devices." I asked how long they've been watching him. The detective said for weeks. He said another county got reports of the same van doing the same thing. So our PD started patrol loops and worked with other agencies to catch him. He asked me not to post about it and to keep routines the same, that they were still looking for 2 more people that were doing this in the area, and if he shows back up in the area to call 911 right away. And he recommended adding cameras just to be on the safe side. The detective said the dark web is full of people like this and that you have to keep your guard up in this day and age.